Everybody wanted to call me a negative Nancy when I came out and said that Blue Beetle was gonna be a box office flop. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Hi y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. As of the time of this video's release, DC's latest film, Blue Beetle, was released a week ago. Now, I had previously made a video saying that I thought Blue Beetle was gonna be a box office flop, and then I thought it looked suspiciously like Warner Brothers Studios was purposely dooming this movie to fail. A lot of folks took personal offense to my predictions about a movie's performance at the box office because I'm sure that is so relevant to so many people in their regular lives. But realistically, Warner Brothers Studios really didn't do much to promote this film, and in the midst of a strike that was not even allowing the actors to come out and talk about the movie to promote it, it really makes sense that a movie like Blue Beetle, which is already about like a D-list superhero as it is, wouldn't perform all that well at the box office. I personally can't say I contributed to the box office to watch it because I went to a special early screening to see it, so I didn't pay for it personally, and I also wasn't all that stoked for it. And if you haven't seen my review, you can see why my expectations sort of turned out to be right. But this video isn't about my personal opinions about the Blue Beetle movie. It's about just how poorly it's doing at the box office. In its opening weekend, Blue Beetle pulled in domestically just over $25 million, and globally it made about $43 million. Now, if we take a look at a movie that came out sort of still in the aftermath of the pandemic, where you still had to wear a mask to go to the movie theaters to watch it, The Batman in March of 2022 had an opening weekend that brought in $128.5 million. And I know for a fact that a lot of you are about to jump my bones and say, Jay, you can't compare Blue Beetle and Batman, you're setting him up to fail. Okay, here are two other irrelevant movies that are also considered flops by DC Studios. Birds of Prey, which was kind of a Harley Quinn movie, but also not, and all it really did was bastardize a bunch of characters, and even though Margot Robbie is big yummy, it was just not a good movie. That movie had a domestic opening weekend of $33 million. That's just domestically. And another DC film widely regarded as a flop, Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods, had a domestic opening weekend of $30 million. So that's $33 million US for Birds of Prey, $30 million US for Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods, and $25.4 million domestically for Blue Beetle. Now again, this video isn't to trash the movie. I already gave my review of it, and I'm not gonna continue talking about what I thought of the movie. But the fact of the matter is that Blue Beetle is an undeniable box office flop. We obviously can't really blame this on just the movie. Reviews for Blue Beetle seem like they're not really all that much worse than a lot of other DC releases, but I think there are a few different factors that are playing the big boot crushing the Blue Beetle right now.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, I deserve that. The ongoing SAG-AFTRA strikes basically silenced anybody from doing any big promo for Blue Beetle. Warner Brothers Studios put so much money and so much time into press junkets, premiere events, and all kinds of other stuff to promote the Barbie movie, all before the SAG-AFTRA strikes started. It seemed like they were gonna start promoting Blue Beetle kind of late in the game, but by the time it was late in the game, the SAG-AFTRA strikes had already started, which meant that the film's admittedly charming star Zorro Maridueña actually couldn't even come out and talk about it anymore. The strike meant no promos, no press junkets, no red carpets with the stars. On another note, I think the fact that James Gunn has already said that he's rebooting the whole DC universe, it's kind of made a lot of people feel like they don't have to watch a lot of these movies anymore. I remember my days of being way more into Marvel than I am now. I would end up going to watch every single Marvel release because they kind of trapped you in this multiverse ecosystem where if you didn't watch every single series and every single movie that was released, at some point they were going to make some reference to something that you missed and you were going to be completely confused, and you were going to have to turn to your buddy next to you and go, hey, when was it that this guy showed up and what did they do? And they definitely weren't going to explain it to you in the theater, and you were going to be lost, and it was going to be a whole thing. And I think that DC, sensibly, has also been trying to do the same thing. But when you already said, hey, none of this is going to count by the time I make my next big movie, then what's what's the point? If you don't give a shit about Blue Beetle and nothing that happens in his movie is gonna become relevant in any other ones, then why spend the money on a ticket? Why go watch it at all? I don't really believe in every movie having to tie into some bigger universe, but that's kind of what these superhero flicks have turned into. So the fact that Blue Beetle is basically not gonna connect to anything anyway really takes away some of the incentive for people to go watch it. And the final nail in Blue Beetle's coffin is that a lot of people have just lost faith in DC projects. It's become increasingly common for DC projects to be incredibly disappointing. Wonder Woman 1984 was a flop. Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods was a flop. Black Adam was a flop. The Flash was plagued with all kinds of issues that we've already talked about ad nauseum in other videos. They literally canned Batgirl before it ever saw the light of day, and for some reason they're still gonna shove Aquaman 2 down our throats even though nobody really gives a shit about it anymore. And with every single PR nightmare that has come up, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson effectively screwing himself out of a job with that massive ego of his, Henry Cavill announcing he was back as Superman and then not back as Superman and then he was fired, and of course Gal Gadot now going back and forth between whether or not she plays Wonder Woman in the next film, which is apparently still not happening. DC is a literal laughingstock. People have lost faith and trust and respect in the DC brand. Some of us keep the dream alive by reading comic books, but really that's not a super common thing among modern audiences. Most of these folks are just going to watch these movies, and if you can't capture their attention in the theater seats, they're not gonna go home and subscribe to DC Infinite so that they can read up on the heroes that you just made look really stupid on the big screen. I feel for the stars of Blue Beetle, I feel for fans of the character, and above all, I feel really bad for us DC fans because we just can't get a win. But Blue Beetle is just not raking in enough money for DC Studios to ever crawl out of the hole that it has dug itself into. Here's hoping that Warner Brothers eventually just sells off DC properties to somebody who knows what they're doing. That's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, check out my Instagram, and to support my content creation, feel free to check out my Patreon. I will link both in the description below. And let me know your thoughts on Blue Beetle's underwhelming week at the box office in the comments below.